In the late 1960s, a killer began terrorizing California. But he wasn't like other murderers. He didn't hide. He didn't run. Instead, he wrote letters to the newspapers. Letters filled with threats, and inside those letters were encrypted messages, codes that seemed impossible to solve. He gave himself a name, the Zodiac, and more than 50 years later, no one knows who he really was. It began on a cold December night in 1968. A quiet road outside the small city of Benicia, two teenagers sat in a parked car. David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. They were on a simple date, talking, laughing, planning their future. Then someone approached the car, moments later. Gunshots shattered the silence of the night. Both teenagers were killed. When police arrived, they found almost nothing, no witnesses. No clear motive, no suspect at the time. They believed it was just another tragic crime. They had no idea. They were dealing with something far darker. 6 months later, July 4th, 1969. Another couple sat in a parked car, this time near Blue Rock Springs Park. Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau. Suddenly, headlights appeared behind them. A car pulled up. The driver stepped out. The couple thought it might be a police officer, but then the man raised a gun and began firing. Darlene was killed. Michael barely survived. But the most chilling moment came later that night, because the killer called the police himself, calmly, coldly, and confessed to both murders. Weeks later, 3 newspapers received nearly identical letters, including the San Francisco Chronicle. The writer claimed responsibility for the murders. At the bottom of the letter was a strange symbol, a circle with a cross through it. And beneath the symbol, a name. The Zodiac, but the letters contained something else, encrypted messages. Ciphers. He promised that if anyone solved the code, they would discover his true identity. But the message was nearly impossible to read. It felt less like a confession, and more like a game, a deadly puzzle. Then, in September 1969, the Zodiac attacked again. This time near the quiet shores of Lake Berryessa. A couple was relaxing beside the water, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. Suddenly a man appeared, but this time, he was wearing something terrifying. A black executioner-style hood, with the Zodiac symbol stitched across the chest. He tied the couple up, then attacked them with a knife. Cecilia later died from her injuries. Brian survived, and described the killer to police. But the Zodiac left one more disturbing clue. He walked to their car and wrote a message on the door, listing the dates of his previous murders, as if they were trophies. Just weeks later, the Zodiac struck again, October 1969, in the busy streets of San Francisco. A taxi driver named Paul Stein picked up a passenger. Moments later, that passenger shot him. Witnesses saw the killer calmly wipe down the cab, then walk away. Police officers even stopped a man nearby matching the description, but due to a radio miscommunication, they believed they were looking for a different suspect. So they let him go. Without realizing it, they had just spoken to the Zodiac killer and allowed him to disappear. Over the following months, more letters arrived. More threats, more puzzles. One cipher became known as the Zodiac 340 cipher for decades. No one could solve it. It remained one of the most famous unsolved codes in history. Then, finally, in 2020, a team of codebreakers cracked the message, but it didn't reveal his identity. Instead, the Zodiac wrote something even more disturbing. "I am not afraid of the gas chamber, because it will send me to paradise sooner." Even in his messages, he treated murder like a game. Then suddenly, the Zodiac disappeared. No more letters, no more murders, just silence. It was as if the killer had simply vanished. Over the decades, investigators examined countless suspects, fingerprints, handwriting, DNA. But the identity of the Zodiac killer was never confirmed. which leaves one terrifying possibility, that the man who wrote those letters, the man who turned murder into a puzzle, was never caught, and somewhere in the world, he may have lived the rest of his life as an ordinary person, a neighbor, a coworker, someone you might pass on the street without ever knowing, because the Zodiac killer left behind something chilling, not just crimes, but questions, codes, mysteries that still haunt investigators today. And until someone finally uncovers the truth, the Zodiac's greatest secret remains hidden. Who was the man behind the symbol, and how did he disappear without leaving a trace? More than half a century later, the identity of the Zodiac killer is still a mystery. Some believe investigators were close to the truth. Others believe the killer died without ever being discovered. But what do you think? Do you believe the Zodiac was ever identified? Or is the real killer still a mystery hidden in history? Let me know your theory in the comments. And if you want to hear more dark mysteries and unsolved crimes, don't forget to subscribe, because the next story might be even more disturbing.